Hello, everyone. It's always a good time to be back here again. And in today's recording, we'll be showcasing how to automate services, basic services, in AWS using scripting and the command line interface, as well as some SDKs. I hope you're going to love the content. Pretty much will be cool. As usual, I'll be taking you through the walk. Maybe just a quick description of what we're doing. Now, AWS services can be provisioned on demand and via methods such as with automatic deploying services or scheduling services as start or stop time, then also responding to event triggers like you find the Lambda and the other likes of services for the serverless environment. AWS services can be managed either via the console, and I'm sure the most part of the recordings we've been doing, you've seen us use the management console, but today we'll be showcasing the CLI, the command line interface, then also the SDK, software development kits. I hope you're going to love the content anyways. Now the lab overview in this session, we will be showing how to use the CLI to access and manage AWS services, configure security for the CLI, then also use the management console intermittently, as well as SDKs to manage. Then finally we'll do some exposure for this fun recording. Okay, great. So at first you see we've downloaded a lab ppk file which we'll be using in our Windows environment to connect to the infrastructure which we'll be using in cloud to test. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up using connect to the Ec2 instance using a PuTTY in Windows in our Windows environment. So right here you can see we have the ppk file, we have PuTTY open. We're also in my notes, I've got the IP address, so I'm going to copy this IP address. I could connect to this using SSH, but I would need the key if I was connecting via a Linux host. But since we're using a Windows host, we can do this right in PuTTY. So we're going to open up PuTTY, which we've done. Then under the configure, we just want to be sure that the timeout is set so something else, not zero, so we don't have the connection disconnect over a period of time. Then we're going to configure the session. So under sessions, we'll go under sessions. We have the option to paste the host IP here, and we can use SSH. Now we could use other means to connect, but for this we're using SSH. Now under SSH we can either load it, the session key, which we're going to be doing anyways to see how this works. Right here we've got options like telnet, login, which we can as well use, but we will use SSH in this particular recording. So if we click on load, we can actually navigate to where the file is, load up the file. I think I can actually find that setup here. I'm just going to go to the host key, select the type, then we can get that loaded and have a session open. Okay, so on the connection here, session, we've set the IP address. Then on the connection here we see SSH. You just need to expand SSH. Then under authentication, we will just browse to where we have the ppk file, which is this. Select that, then we can go ahead to click on open to open this. Then we will have a session opened up for us. Well, we're just going to accept this so we can have the session. We'll be logging in as the EC2 user. So we'll be logging in as EC2 user. So we should have a connection established after the authentication. So we have a connection established, and right here off the bat we can see we have the session EC2 user. We can run a normal Linux command. We've got a couple of scripts here which we're going to be using for throughout the course of this recording. Okay, so this is how to access using the command line. Now we can also go in that EC2 instance right here off the bat. We can just search for EC2, which will be using the management console, and then we can also still access EC2 from the management console. That's the second way to do this. So I'll wait for this to load up. We'll see that particular instance, then we can view what it looks like right off the command line, the management console. So within the management console, we can see we've got the test instance and the CLI instance. Both of them are T2 Micro and they're running. I can click on them to go into them and understand what they look like in terms of the connection and configuration. But this is management console. Now, what if we try to maybe create a key pair to from this management console. Then we're going to showcase how that can be done. Now within this, we can create key pairs right here of the management console. We can as well do the same from the command line interface, which we'll be showcasing later. But let's start with the management console platform. So right here in the management console, we can see a bunch of options here, but if we scroll down, we will see key pairs. If we click on key pairs, we can create a key pair. So creating a key pair, we will see what this looks like, creating the keys that you can use to connect to resources. Anyways, that's basically what we're doing. So we're going to give this key name. We'll just call this console. Then the file format, now we can use the RSA or the ED2 5519, which I think it's pretty much better. In most recent, I've seen a wide adoption of this as compared to the RSA file. So again, we can do the .pem if we know we're using a Linux host, OpenSSH or any other SSH agent, or we can use the .ppk, which will be for a Windows host. So we have this flexibility and the options to what we want to use to create the key pair which we desire. Now, depending on your environment, if I know my user will be a Windows user, I'm going to go for the ppk file. I could tag this just to for identification purpose as usual, but if I know my user is also on a Linux system, I'll do the .pem file, which would be a better approach. But I'm going to have to, for each of them, I can use any of this key pair type, which doesn't really matter at this point anyways, because it's just a dummy recording. So let's assume, since we have a Windows host here, let's assume our user will be a Windows user. So just select this, then we'll create the key. Now the key will be created, then we'll be allowed to download part of the key which we'll be using to access the resource if we need to. So right here off the bat, we can see we've just created a key called console. So we have this key here. This key can be used. We can also see a copy of the key has been downloaded. Right here below, you will see the console.ppk key. Now I can use this key to access the instances within this account as well, just like this other key that I've used to access it via my SSH, my PuTTY connection. Okay. Now let's see how we can do this if we're using the CLI. So within the CLI, we'll be using certain commands to also repeat the same task which we've done to create another key. Let's go ahead and watch how that works out. Okay, so if I was doing this via the command line, right here within this, I can create a key, just verify AWS EC2. This is using the CLI. We can use the create key pair command. Then we can give the key name. We'll just call these tests. Okay, now it's going to throw a blob at us. You can see that's a blob, the key. Now I'm not writing this file out, so it throws it out on this browser and this terminal session here. We can as well copy this, create a file, or we can still do that right here off the bat, write this out to a file. Okay, but we're not doing this because we don't really need this at the moment. That's one way to do the CLI. If I was going to do this programmatically, I'm going to clear the screen. LS in here, you can see I've got several scripts here, Python scripts. There is a Python script to create key pair. So if I cut that, create key pair, we'll see it's a small script using importing Boto3, then also connecting to the Ec2 instance using Boto3, then creating a key pair. So we see now the key pair name will be SDK. If I run this command or the script, we're going to see that it's going to create a key. Then we can print the private fingerprint of the key right off the bat here. So I'm going to run create key pair command. So that's we run, and well, we can see the fingerprint here. If I go back in here and refresh this, we should have a new key, which would be the SDK key we've just created. So this is the SDK key, this is the test key that we created in the previous session. So we can see how we can use all three methods, either via the console or via the CLI or via programmatically or SDK. So pretty much important that you understand how all these three methods can be used to administer, manage resources within the AWS environment. Next in line, we're going to see how we can do some automatic cleanup using a script programmatically. Here we can see a script called cleanup keypair.pair. If I cut the command cleanup keypair, we can see it's still using Boto Python. Then we can see it's going to go search, and if look at that for keys and key pairs. Okay, great. If lab not in the key pair name, lowercase, if any other key that doesn't have this name. Now if we go back here, we can see the only key that has lab name is this first key, so it's going to be using the negative. If that particular printlet is not in the key name, then it's going to clean the key. So now we're going to run this command and see what that looks like. I'm just going to use my up arrow, go back, clear this up, then run this. Okay, this is going to delete, so we see it's deleting the first test key, console key, and the SDK key. Now if I go back here and refresh this, we will see that there's only one key left there, which is this. So this is another way you can programmatically manage resource. So we're still within the context of what we have to do today. Next, we're going to see how we can maybe access S3 buckets and maintain or manage S3 buckets by putting content within or removing content from the S3 buckets. All right, let's get into the second part of the fun. Okay, so just the same way we can manage the S3 from this management console, which you can see here, we've got about a bunch of options to actually use for managing S3. We can create new buckets, we can put content or remove content, or even delete the bucket entirely. We can as well do the same within the CLI. So let's see maybe some few commands within the CLI. Let's say I want to list all the content in a bucket. I can use the command AWS S3 ls. This should be able to query the S3 and list the buckets. So we can see right here we've got two buckets, which are exactly what we have in here, these two buckets. So it's also given us a bit of more details, like the timestamp where this was actually executed. So let's say there is a change made here from here and a bucket is deleted. The next time you run that command, you're going to be seeing what exactly would be here. Okay, so this is one way to just list the content without having to go through the browser to do this. Now there are a bunch of other commands that you can use, like MB for making buckets, LS for listing the content within a bucket, or even CP for copying buckets, which we're going to showcase, or even the sync. We can sync, complete the directory into a bucket. So we're going to showcase all of these methods. For basic stats, let's say we want to create a bucket. So at the variable minimum, I'm going to clear the screen since we don't need that anymore. I'm going to run AWS S3, then MB. Remember, I'm creating a bucket, so I'll call this bucket S3. We'll give it a name, maybe we'll just call this tests. That should be let's give it data. Anyways, data. Remember, it has to be a unique name. If not, you'll be having a mismatch. 213. Let's see if that works out, if the name is still available. Okay, great. So if I run the previous command to list the buckets, we should see new buckets in there, data 213, as you can see right there. Okay, great. So that's one way to quickly create a bucket. You can see how easy it is to do from here than with the command, with the clicky on the management console. So if we can do this pretty much easy here, well, let's say we want to copy. Remember, within this directory we've got a bunch of scripts. Let's say we want to copy one of these scripts, like the create key pair, into our buckets. We can also use the CP command, like I did mention earlier. So I can run the AWS S3 CP. So we're copying. We can sync the entire content within the directory to the bucket, which probably I might show later. So we'll copy the creates. Let's say we'll copy the creates. My bad. Key pair. Then let's take it to the bucket which we just created. So it's S3 data 213, I believe, verified. So this will copy that into the bucket. Now we can see there is a command saying upload, so which means it uploaded the content of this into the bucket. Let's go back here and maybe review stuff. So I'm going to refresh this so we can see our new bucket which we just created. Then I'm going to open that bucket to see if the content has been copied into the bucket or not. Let's click on that bucket. So we can see there is the content right in the bucket. Now we can also do this, if this is the only access we have, we can do this here also using AWS S3 ls. Then the bucket path. So it's S3 data, my bad, data 213. We'll see the content, so we can see the content within the bucket right there as well. Okay, great. Now we can see how easy and flexible it is to do this. Let's say we want to maybe paste something else within a bucket. Let's say, for instance, we paste the command. Sorry, I just saw something flying around. We want to paste something into a bucket. We can as well do the same thing right there. Let's showcase how that's going to work out. So imagine if we want to sync all the content within this current directory. If we do pwd here, we want to sync all the content within this current EC2 user directory to the S3 bucket which you've just created. We can use the command AWS S3, then we'll pass the sync, which is the sync command. Now the current location we're in, then the bucket path, so it's called data 213. So this is going to sync the whole content. You can see it's uploading everything within the current directory into the buckets. Now if I try to list the content of the bucket with our previous command, we will see that we have more content in the bucket. Now again, we can go in here and refresh this. We will see all content have been put into our buckets. Now this is pretty much easy and even faster than you will do using this, so I recommend playing around with this stuff. Now the third option will be, what if we want to do this programmatically with a script? So imagine we want to script this thing. We don't want to start doing this manually. I think right here also there is a script. Let's see. Okay, there is no script to automate this, but again, just like the same way we create a script to create key pair or a script to maybe clean up, we can also automate this thing using scripts and just run the script. It's going to carry out all the action. You can even add the script to maybe something like a cron job within the Linux. So at every specific time of the day, day of the week, it's going to run the cron job or task, even a task scheduler on a Windows environment, and just carry out the specific action. Let's say you've got an application that you want to monitor specific metric. So you can, within the Linux server, you can create a cron job, which will have a script like this that runs within the context of the application, extract the useful details you want, and just copy that over to a particular S3 bucket in the cloud resource. Hence, it becomes easy for you to go in there and monitor or look at or review, or even pass that over to another third-party utility like Kibana to have a dashboard for better orchestration and management. Okay, so that will be the first phase. Now, this is not done. We still have some fun stuff to do with EBS and snapshots and Bastion host security as well. Let's get right into that. Okay, so the question will be, what is ELB, Elastic Block Store? Well, ELB basically provides block store level storage volume for use within EC2 instance context. So we will see how we can actually use the CLI, the management console, and also SDKs to manage block store. Basically, we want to create snapshots, which is obviously where backup data within a block of volume. We'll see how that stuff works within these three contexts. So let's start with creating an EBS snapshot and a management console, which is pretty easy anyways. All you have to do is go right there and you will see the volume. You see snapshots. So if I start with the volume, let's say we click on the volume to see the volumes we have, or we look at the volumes, then off the volume we'll create the snapshots. We can also do the lifecycle manager, which we'll not be touching today anyways, but we'll start with the snapshots. My internet is crazy slow. Okay, please bear with me. Great, we see we've got two volumes. One is 20 gigs, one is 8 gig. So right here off the bat, we can actually review these volumes and then maybe create a snapshot from these volumes. So if we click on, let's say, the 8G volume, or any of them can actually work out in this context. Okay, so let's say we click on the 20G. Right here in actions, I can actually create a snapshot. So if I click create snapshots, I just have to give this snapshot a description. If I want to encrypt this, I can actually encrypt this, but and again, not encrypted. So we can call this, let's say we just give this a basic name, okay, just for recognition, console snapshots. Now we will add tag if we want to. I'm just going to click on create snapshots. This is pretty fast, easy. We've just created snapshot that easy. If I go over to snapshots, I should have a snapshot right there. So this is like a backup, although we see the status is dependent, but it's going to go over that process and create that. But what if we want to do this maybe via the CLI, which I believe obviously would be much easier. although we would need the volume ID to be able to do that. So if I go back right here, I will have to copy this volume ID. So I'm going to copy, okay, I cannot copy this using the clicky, but I can actually click on it, then just copy it right here. Okay, so if I go in here, I can repeat the same thing. I'm going to clear the screen right here using the command AWS Ec2 just creates snapshots, then we give it a description. Let's call it snap shots, maybe snapshot CLI. Okay, that's a fair name. Then the volume ID, we will paste the content which we've copied right here and click enter. So this is going to go through the process. We can see the description is snapshot CLI, the tag, there is no tag, the encrypted is false, then the volume ID, then it starts the process, but we see it's in a pending state. So if I go back in here, maybe go to snapshots, we will see there is a new snapshot being created. As you can clearly see, there's snapshot CLI. So this is pretty much easier as compared to the management console, like I always say. So you want to go play with this stuff, go ahead and have some fun or some party with it. Well, just know that you would need the volume ID if you have to be doing it right here. Or as for here, you just need to click that volume and use action to click the snapshot. But again, I recommend using this. So off to the next part, we're going to see how we can create maybe an EBS snapshot programmatically. So we've got a command in here. If I ls the content, we will see there's a snapshotter over there. So we can also do this programmatically. If I cut the content of snapshotter, we will see it's still using the bottle and date time here to verify the current context. Then the maximum snapshots is 2, number of snapshots to keep. So this is pretty interesting. So which means this would rather help us manage maybe having repetitions of these snapshots, which obviously will be eating up memory for us or space for us in our cloud context. So we'll be keeping a maximum of 2 snapshots. Then it's going to connect to the instance using Boto. Then it's going to look through each instance, check for the specification, then create the snapshots with the volume description. Then the new snapshots, the command right here, then printed the snapshot ID as is created, then too many snapshots. If that is the case, then it's going to apply that to delete the older snapshots and keep the maximum snapshot of just 2, which will be the most recent. Okay, so if we run this command, we will see the effect of that. So I'm just going to run this using this. Okay, great. Let's run this. It's going to check. We see that warning right there. Then deleted a particular snapshot to be able to create the one which you want. So if I refresh this, we will see there is a new one created. Apart from the 8 gigs, we can see this is starting, still pending, apart from these 2 that were there. So that's how this stuff works. Okay, pretty much easy to just run a script and get everything done for you. But well, whilst that is an option which you can use in your automation pipeline, obviously via placing this on a cron task and a cron job or a task scheduler to just run for you. You can also leverage off the CLI, which I think is a much more better approach to do stuff, so you can interact with that whatever you're doing. Okay, after the next, we're going to automate bastion host security and see how that stuff works. Now before that, let's do a bit of I'm going to clear the screen, ls in here. I'm just going to run this command again. Let me see if it's going to add another one or delete something. So let's see. I think I have it off my. Let's run this again and see what happens this time around. Okay, so we see it's deleting. If I refresh this, let's see how that plays out here. Great. We can see we've got 4 snapshots in here. Now these will be 2 from these 8 gigs recent, then 2 from the 20 gigs recent. If I probably am tempted to repeat the same thing again, let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to refresh this. Now we still see 4, but look at what is happening here. So it had deleted 2 of the last one. I probably would have checked the ID so you can follow suit. Deleted 2 of the old ones and adding 2 more for each of them. So just to show you how easy scripting can actually help you manage stuff. Rather than having repetition, it checks, then deletes the 2 old ones, the 2 oldest, then add the recent backup of your volume. Okay, let's move on to the next part of this, which will be automating bastion host security using scripting. Okay, moving on to the next phase, we will be looking at bastion host security automation. So you may be wondering, what is a bastion host? Bastion host simply it's that hardened host that you put in front, stripped off several of the applications. It's just what you want it to do, like a proxy server or something. So every other host behind connects to the bastion host and only accepts connection coming from bastion host. So bastion host is basically hardened enough to withstand several security threats, and it serves as an interface that helps you create the security layer to prevent direct access to your resources. So again, you can implement these on any environment to help you manage how you want to allow access to resources on your environment. You can put them right behind the bastion host to help you probably also have visibility as to all the connections coming to your applications or your resources in your environment. Okay, so a typical environment to seem like you having a bastion host user, and then you have the bastion host, then you have all the Linux instances or Windows instance within a private network. So the private network host connects to the bastion host to be able to access every other resource outside. Likewise, other resources can access or connect to the private hosts via the bastion hosts. Okay, so for this particular challenge, we'll first try to create some security group or create a security group to maybe for the bastion host. Then we'll see how we can now use the command line to manage this stuff. So going right here over to the EC2, we will be doing security groups. So over to security group, you can see security groups right there. We click on it, then we will be creating a new security group. We've got a couple at the moment, but we'll create a new one. We'll give it a name, maybe just give it a name Bastion. Then the description, we'll just leave it as Bastion. Bastion host group. Okay, great. Then the VPC, in this context, we need to be sure we're using our lab VPC. So we'll verify that and I'll come back to you guys. Okay, so we have the options for our lab VPC right there. We're going to select that, not the default VPC. And I think we have everything right here. Okay, I'm not going to be doing any inbound or outbound settings at the moment. We're just going to go ahead and create this security group. Currently, we can see all traffic from all is actually set. We'll just create the security group. Now we're going to use the command line interface to start maybe permitting inbound traffic to start with, then also setting other rules. Currently there are no rules here, we can see that. Okay, so I'll go over here. I'm going to clear this screen. Then the first thing which we'll be doing is to try to see if we can probably allow or permit traffic specific, maybe set an inbound rule, then see how that stuff works. Okay, so we're going to run a command to extract the security group ID. I'm just going to paste that right there. Basically what we're doing is security group ID AWS, then describe the description security groups, then the filter, the group name, and the value bastion host. Then we're going to see if we can query for that to extract the security group. We should have ls in there, and then we should start thinking and write the file out. Just going to run that command again and verify why it didn't write the file out. Okay, so it did store the value as an environment variable. We'll verify if it did by executing this command. So what we're trying to do at this point is we're trying to allow connection from our IP specific. Remember, I'd shown you the public IP address. So we want to allow connections only from that public address range. If I run this, we will see if that command executes successfully. It didn't return no error. So we'll go back to the management console and refresh on this, the inbound traffic. We should have a new rule in there if that executed successfully. Okay, as you can see right there, great. So we're allowing SSH connection from our IP only, which we had specified. So it does mean that it wrote the value out, the security group ID within the environment variable. Now we can see how quickly that works. Now we gain access. What if we want to revoke this access? We can as well revoke this access basically using same command, but just changing a few syntax, which we're going to see off the bat. Okay, so whilst the first command is set to authorize the security group ingress, the second command is going to revoke that. So which means for the security group ID within the environment variable, which is ours, it's going to revoke access. And then if I run this, wait for that to execute. If I go back here and refresh this, we will see that that access has been revoked. Hence, there is nothing here anymore. So pretty much easy to just do all that management right here within the command line interface. So we can see how to grant and how to revoke. What else can we do here? Maybe automate the whole process of permission granting using scripting. So if I ls in here, we'll see there's a script there. Bastion host open, Bastion host close, py. We can automate this. For instance, if I cut the content of Bastion hosts open, we can simply see this is a pretty small script. Curl for IP, curl for that, then check the IP address, then security group specification within the environment variable, then run the command, exactly the same command, authorize. So this is where it comes in handy. Authorizing the security group ID within the environment variable, then allow connection from port 22 only. So if I execute this Bastion host open, it's going to do the same thing that we're able to do by interacting with this using the command line. So I'm just going to execute this script. Then once it's done, I will go back here and refresh this. We should see that yes, we have actually created this. Then I can revoke this. If I cut the Bastion close, it's basically doing the same thing, but this time around is using Boto. So we're going to go for the group name Bastion. Then on the Ec2 instance, then we're going to run exactly that command here first to filter. Then we can now delete the access by revoking the permission. So I'm going to execute this just to show you that once that is done executing, we will lose that access. I'm just going to run this, then wait for that to finish. Then I'll refresh this. It's going to be out of the place. So we see we do not have that access again. Now that's automation. We're just using some SDKs to automate this whole thing here. The next thing which we're going to be seeing is maybe we can control the Ec2 instance with stopinator, that's properly called. We've got a script here to do that. We're going to see how that stuff works. If I clear the screen, let's cat stopinator. So let's review this script. Again, it's using Boto. You see it's importing Boto. Then at the variable minimum, first create the connection, then loop through each instance. For each instance, the state, check the instance states. Now we're trying to use a script like this to stop several instances. We do not want to maybe always go via the management console to review and stop, or via the command line. We just want to rely on a script like this automation, which can be dropped within our cron job or within our in a Windows environment in our scheduled task, to just automate the whole process of managing or stopping instances. So we will see it's going to loop through, check the states, then for tag in instance tag, look at that, check for stopinator tag. If tag key stopinator, okay, great, sorry about that. The action will be tag value lower, then stop. Great. If action is equal to stop, then state equals running, then print stop, then stop it. So which means if it checks if the action is stop but the state is running, it's going to stop it. Then again for termination, else if action equals terminate and state is not equal to terminated, then it's going to terminate that instance. Okay, great. I'm going to clear this string. Then we can execute this command just by stopinator. So it's going to check through. Now if I go back to our Ec2 instance, if you look at this, please, okay, it's wanting us to go to Python 3 anyways. We ignore all that stuff. Okay, the command ran successfully. Yeah, we can see no longer supported by Python 2 as of July 15, but we can still use it anyways. Do not mind me, just not supported. If we go back to the management console and check on our instances, let's just do that. We can see Great, we've got only these two instances running. So if we check maybe instance states column just to look at the instance states, we see they are running, right? So we've been able to pretty much remove the other instances which we do not need within the environment. Yeah, but there seems to be a bit of challenge. If we cut the content of this script again, it seemed like it did not execute successfully because it has checked for scripts with the tag stop, and all scripts are running, so it didn't find script with tag stop. So let's simulate something. Let's say this test instance, I hope we don't lock ourselves out anyways, but we select that instance, then we will go to action, or sorry, instance states. We will stop this instance. So what we're trying to do is to simulate a stopped instance, then we'll go run our script and see if that stuff is going to actually work for us, maybe initiating the command in the script. Okay, so a bit of tagging here so we can add that tag to the instance, and watch how Stopinator automatically stop that thing. So we're using this tag key Stopinator, then the tag value stop, so it can match what actually is within this block of the command. Okay, all lowercase is also checking all lowercase. We can see that right there. So we will save this tag for this instance, then we'll go back and run Stopinator and see if it's going to stop that instance for us. So let's go back and run the scripts. So now we see that it's able to stop the instance. So quickly go back here, refresh this, we will see that instance is being stopped. Okay, now that's how you do this stuff. Anyways, you can also start this within here as well, just to show you how easy it is for us to automate this whole process. Then also we can as well use schedule task to repeat the same thing. Then the final phase of this recording would be to do some CloudWatch metric management using SDKs and the command line interface. So over the command line interface, we're going to just do some CloudWatch metric check. I'm going to clear the screen. Let's do AWS CloudWatch put metric data. Let's see, name space lab. Okay, then metric name. So let's put maybe check-in. That's me anyways. All right, then value 42. Let's see. Okay, that ran without errors. Now I'm going to go back to the AWS Service Management and check for CloudWatch and then see how that stuff works. I'm just going to pause then come back when I have that. So over the CloudWatch to check what we just did, if I click on metrics here, maybe view all metrics, or we can go specific within the metric. Maybe we just check right here on the metric. We can see all metrics. It takes a while to load right there. So currently we're going to find what we just did from the command line interface to see if we're able to identify that within the console. So under lab 1, we can see metric with no dimension. We're just going to check metric with no dimension because we didn't specify nothing. Then we should be able to identify the metric. We can see checking blazingly over there. Okay, we just playing around anyways, we're just fooling around. Okay, we can add this to search and move from search, but just to show you what it looks like, how we can do this from here. But what if we want to use an SDK? There is a script here which is built to do stuff around CloudWatch high-low. If I cut the content of high-low, sorry, we can see this is going to be doing a bit of CloudWatch. Again, we're using Boto over there, importing random time sys. Then we will be connecting to the instance. Then we'll run a bit of health check and do some metric extraction over to CloudWatch. I'm just going to go through this whole phase and just run this just to show you. So if I run this command, high-low, now it's going to take a while. I'm thinking of a number 1 to 100. Try to guess it. Enter 0 to exit. So let's play around this stuff. Let's see, play the game and see how we can probably have records stored in there. So let's say I select 2. Too low. Okay, great. 50, too high. 20, too high. 10, too low. Excellent. 15, too high. Great. 13, too low. 14. Aha! The metric has been sent to CloudWatch. Okay, this is pretty fun anyways. So if I exit this, I'm going to go over to CloudWatch and I'm going to fall back to lab. Then let's go view all that metric that we've generated from our gameplay. Okay, so we have two metrics now with no dimensions. If I click on that, we will see the metric from high low, and that's pretty fun stuff anyways. Just to show you how we can do any of this stuff from the command line. Then the final phase of this will be security credential with scripts. So let's say we want to extract credentials or generate credentials or check health check if credentials are being stored right off the bat where they're not supposed to be stored. There is a script here on SDK to do that. If I cut the content of where is it, show credentials, we will see what it's doing. It's using role, then using curl to connect to that instance 169.254. We know what that IP address stands for. Then also trying to use curl to extract content within the role. So let's say we run this show. Okay, great. We can see that it's able to run successfully and extract access key ID, type, token. Now this is pretty legit stuff and cool stuff. Like, again, well, by the time you're watching this video, I'm sure a lot of this will be down anyways. But just to show you how easy it is to automate workflow. And again, finally, to wrap up, I know this is pretty much the longest I've seen in a while. We can use I'm going to clear the screen, AWS help here to find options for the commands that you want to use based on specificity, depending on how that stuff works. You can also use the AWS maybe specific to EC2 help. You can do the same thing for S3, check options within the S3. It's the same thing, AWS S3 help. It's going to also give you options for S3. Then we can also do AWS EC2, maybe describe, my spelling is RIBE instance. Again, we can use help here. How to, we see tons of options that we can use. Maybe we want to replace routes, we want to reset hosts, we want to wait a minute, we want to restore, describe, delete. A bunch of commands that we can use within the SDK, within the command line CLI. So that will be it for today. I hope you've been able to find something useful to learn from here, and I'll be seeing you in our subsequent recording. Have a good day, and ciao.